Hey guys, Garage here, and on my shoulder like a parrot, I have the Ampeak 2000W pure sine wave inverter. Ampeak reached out to me, they saw some of my other videos, and they said, hey Garage, we'd love to get one of these on your test bench. And I said, let's do it, send it. So full disclosure, I didn't pay anything for this unit, but my promise to you is that will in no way, shape, or form affect the outcome of my reviews or anything I say in my reviews, period. I call it like it is. I can't wait to test this. We're going to do all of our normal stuff. We're going to tear this thing down. We're going to see the build quality. We're going to see the insides. We are going to dyno this inverter. We're going to see how far we can actually push it. Does it break? I don't know. We're going to find out. So we're going to do all of that testing and more. Let's check it out. This is everything that comes in the box with your Ampeak 2000W pure sine wave inverter. You have right down here a 14mm wrench, you've got a little manual, and you've got some 20mm cables. These 20mm cables are just smaller than a 4-gauge wire, so it's really not quite the cabling you need to truly sustain 2000 watts. I'd recommend 2-aught for that, but this will get the job done and get you going. It's kind of like just starter cables. So you can see the copper up inside there, a little bit blurry, but see if I get that to focus. These seem to be well made. The silicone jacketing is nice and it will get you home. But that is everything that comes in the box. This inverter has some nice options. Just power switch, two 15-amp outlets. We have a 20-amp outlet. You can tell by this little leg right here. We have a 12-volt DC output, cigarette lighter style, two 3.1-amp USB connectors, and then we have a port for a remote switch. I do like that Ampeak does not include the remote by default because so many people don't use it, and if it's always included, then that just means that you're paying for that even if you don't use it. So if you do need the remote, you have to buy that remote separately. It helps keep the cost down, but that's it for this side. On this side of the unit, we have two terminal studs for positive and negative. We have these caps. They go over the top. They cover once you make your wire connection, and then you can put a little nut on top to secure those. I like those. And there is one little stud here for grounding the unit. Just tossing up some quick specifications that the manufacturer lists on their advertisement. You guys can pause the screen, and if you need to see anything in detail. Let's have a look at how this thing is built. Overall, nice and tidy. The way this is designed, this is an all plastic chassis. So you can see here's the front panel. It's all plastic. I don't know why they made this look like a heatsink. It's not, because that doesn't do anything for cooling. We have two fans on each end, and they draw air over these heat sinks and out. And these fans are pretty powerful, but these are not very loud. They're actually quite reasonable. So it's fan cooled only. I only found two thermistors on this controlling those fans temperature-wise. Let's see if we can get this to focus. Sorry about that, guys. One thermistor is right there with thermal paste, just sitting against the heatsink. And I spotted one other one right above my fingernail, right there in the middle of the board. So I didn't see a lot of ways to measure temperature on this. So going over to this side of the board, we have our USB in, and the USB circuitry is built onto the board, so it's not a separate little card. This is our cigarette lighter in, comes down, and you can see a 25 amp fuse right here on the board for that. These wires will not support 25 amps without smoking, but that's what it is. We have our hot and we have our neutral, our 14 gauge wires, silicone jacketed. This little funky ground, this is actually a little bit concerning. So you can see how these are soldered on. They are just barely tacked right on the edge of each of these with all the wiring. Was not super impressed with the solder job on those connectors. So for Ampeak, that's something you can improve on. I am a little concerned, but here's one of the grounds. It just goes into this powder coated metal plate or painted metal plate down here. So you got a ground there. And then the ground that you would tie into is on the other side through this metal plate. I don't see, there's no copper or bare copper there for that connect to. So quite literally, the grounds from over there come through, connect here, and they go out to that little stud. So that's kind of interesting on the grounding. What else to comment on here? The DC inlet wires, we have 3 8 gauge, 3 for positive, 3 for negative. They're bolted to the bus bar that goes to the outside for the DC input. You can kind of see it down in there. See if we can lighten that up. And there is Loctite on those bolts, so that is good. Now the wires themselves look to be all copper, silicone jacketed. Those look to be quality. So for fusing, we have 8 40 amp fuses on the DC side on the input. That is quite a lot of fusing. Like most affordable inverters, and I wish engineers would stop doing this because it's a built-in obsolescence in lifespan. These are 105C caps, but all the capacitors on each of these sides here were touching the heat sinks. So these were right against the heat sink on both sides. I really don't like that. And I had one poly cap at the end down here that was pressed against that heat sink. That just shortens their lifespan, takes away from the overall longevity of the product. So they could do better there. And please don't open this up unless you know what you're doing and try to pry these away from the heat sinks like I did. Because if this thing is charged up or you haven't discharged the caps, you could fry yourself. I don't want to see you die. Frying's not good. This does not have a lot of inrush. Even my little 3 amp power supply here can start this thing up without even any problem whatsoever, which is kind of nice. So it takes away a little bit from the need to charge up all the capacitors on the board with a resistor and going through that whole process, because there's hardly any startup inrush on this, which, like I said, kind of a pleasant little surprise. I just touched my power supply to turn it on and it already charged. I hardly saw anything on my screen. So without anything on, after those caps charged up very, very slowly, it's almost like they have a built-in resistor that charges them. We're not drawing anything whatsoever on this. Now, when I turn this whole inverter assembly on, minding my fingers so I don't light myself up like a Christmas tree, you heard it barely come up. And at 13.2 volts, where I have this power supply set, our idle draw is super, super low. I mean, we're only drawing 5 watts right now. That is pretty darn impressive. I'm used to seeing on cheap inverters well over that, like double, like 10. I've seen 15 watts at idle. So 5 watts is really, really good. But that is it. I'm going to turn it off and it's going to scream because I just cut all power to it. That is really it for our little tour around this. There are no voltage or current adjustments, so there are no trimmers on this board anywhere. So you can change the voltage output or change current output or anything like that. So, but that, my friends, just get a shot of this side. That is it. And like I said, there's no other temperature sensors that I'm seeing over here. It's just those two. So I wanted you guys to see that I actually have had this inverter in use real world for several weeks now. It's sitting on top of an all-in-one system I built about a month ago using a top bowl inverter, but this Ampeak inverter is virtually the same size. And you can see right now it's running at about almost an 1100 watt load. And every day this thing has been powering on the AC side 24 hours a day a window Medea AC unit, a little 12K AC unit. And right now I turn the AC way down temperature wise, so it's drawing all that it can draw. So you can see almost 1100 watts there. And this little inverter has not skipped a beat. I've been super, super happy with it. And obviously 2 weeks isn't a long test period, but I wanted you to know I didn't just take it out of the box, slap it on the bench and say, cool, it's good. This thing is actually working, doing a job as a workhorse, as an inverter should, and there has been no problems. If I do ever have a problem, I will note it in the video description, so you'll see it on the very top line if I ever have a problem with the product. Alright, so we are all set to dyno run this little inverter, and we've got it on a 280 amp hour 12 volt LFP battery with a 200 amp BMS. This is a test rig that I built a little while ago for these smaller inverters, and we have a Victron Smart Shunt over there monitoring output. Over here, we have just a basic scope with an FFT. We're going to be monitoring our waveform, and we're going to be monitoring any noise, see if anything pops up in the upper end of the FFT, which is this kind of pinkish purplish line up top. You can see the waveform at idle right now. We do have a little bit of a step there, but that's okay. That's actually perfectly fine. I've got a Fluke 41B monitoring total harmonic distortion. We're about 1% at idle. And this is just a little homebrew. I am monitoring wattage mainly on this, and also power factor. This thing is actually very accurate for what it is. We are going to present this thing with a resistive load, not inductive. We're going to do a resistive load, and we're going to ramp it up, and we're going to see how far we can push this inverter before it goes into protect. And we're also going to check to see what the distortion numbers look like. So let's get on that. All right, we got lights out in here so you guys can see these screens better. We're going to go ahead and start our load. Got kind of a mini load bank I built behind me, ramping up. You'll hear the fans on that. So you can see we're passing about 500 watts. We're at 1.5% total harmonic distortion. Waveform looks good, not seeing anything weird. Still ramping up here. Now, right now we're about 840 watts. On our display we showed 940. I have noticed there is quite a discrepancy on this screen to compare to reality. I've measured it over and over. It's not huge, but it's not enough to say that this screen is super accurate. Just what it is. Like right now we're passing, we're about 970. In reality, we are just at 900, so we're about 70 watts off down low. So, all right. Waveform still looks good. We've increased to 2% total harmonic distortion. Let's see where we are. All right, so we're at 900 watts. And we're at 997 on the screen. Internal fans have not kicked on yet. She's running quiet. All right, let's go ahead and take this up a notch. So we're pretty much leveled out on this setting, load bank. So we're going to kick this up quite a bit. Now you can see draws increasing quickly. Ooh, so at 1.6, we're already at 5% total harmonic distortion. See if I can make this a little more visible for you guys. We're just passing its rating, 2000 watts, so we're at 6% distortion. I don't see any additional noise in the FFT. Waveform looks about the same. So we're actually past its rating right now. We are climbing on THD past its rating, so we're a little over 2000 watts. 2100 watts. And there go the fans, and we're at 7% total harmonic distortion. So we are past its rating. Waveform's starting to triangle. So I say we definitely have surpassed its limit. But let's see where it goes to. Let's see how far we can push this guy. So our screen is showing 2420. Reality, we're at 2.26. 8.6% distortion. We've definitely gone into a triangle here. Oh, we're at 2.3. Display showing almost 2500 watts. We are at 2.34 to 2334 watts. Oh, that's interesting. It kicked itself back on automatically. So it was a temporary protect. Back down to 2.27 because the load bank cooled down a little bit. So we're coming back up. Total harmonic distortion is 8.8 at this level of output. 2.3. Let's kind of watch the screen as it goes into protect mode here. It should be coming into it pretty soon if it follows the same path. Yep, overload. I do like that it auto recovers. Auto recovers and comes right back up. All right, so we're going to back this off to the point that we get back into a clean waveform. Let's go back to 2000 watts. All right, that's its rated output right there. And we are at 6.9% distortion. And still a little bit of a triangle wave. Not too bad. Not too bad. Completely workable. I wish the distortion wasn't quite so high, but that's due to that little bit of a triangle wave there, but it is what it is. So let's take this all the way down to about 1500 watts. Let's see where we're at there. We're at 18, just getting to 1800 watts. Distortion has dropped to 5.9. Waveform is still looking better and better. Let's take this way down, get her down to 15. Alright, there we go. 1500 watts. 4.5% distortion, which is perfectly fine. Waveform's good. And at 1500 watts, we're showing 1650, 1640-ish. So that's really it, guys, for the dyno. This thing did really, really well, especially for the price point. Absolutely amazing for the price point. Another really long day of testing down, and Ampeak, I had a blast checking out your inverter. Thank you so much for sending it in to us. Viewers, I'd love to know, what did you think of the testing? What did you think of the data? What did you think of the teardown? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Do post that up. So let's get into the ugly side of things, right? Let's get into the cons. All right, so my cons on this inverter. There really isn't too many gripes, especially for the price point, but we do have a few. Let's start off with the display. Definitely not the most accurate thing. I have seen displays a lot more accurate on very budget-minded inverters. This one gets the job done. It is not a precision instrument by any means, so it's just okay in that respect. It kind of tells you generally what's going on. All right, so let's move on into another con. You guys saw the receptacle wiring on the inside when I did the teardown. Ampeak, you got something to work on there. That was pretty subpar. Even for a budget inverter, that was pretty bad. It wasn't going to pop loose. It wasn't cold soldered or anything. It just, the quality of that soldering on there left a lot to be desired. So you guys got some work to do there. See, what else? The grounds on this, I wasn't really impressed with the way the ground was terminated internally. I don't think it's done very good at all. That's one other area that Ampeak you could do a little bit better on. Most of the population out there is never going to use this ground lug. Most people are just going to put DC in, 120 volt out, run it. So it's not a big deal. But for those that do run a ground lug, that's a little bit, I didn't like what I saw. Let's just put it that way. Let's see. The last little bit of cons, we did see quite a rise in, holding it like a pizza over here, I did see quite a rise in total harmonic distortion once we got up to its max output range. And that's just, there's nothing on my side I can do to clean that up anymore. That's just a function of the inverter itself. Once we got to 2000 watts and above, you saw the distortion rise quite a bit. Was it unworkable? No. Is it dangerous? No, not at all. But it is above the 5% threshold I like to see on an inverter. But again, that was like at max output and then even beyond max output. All right, so let's get into the pros of this inverter. The price on this thing is crazy good. This is a really affordable inverter, and it comes with reasonably quality cable. It is a little bit on the small side, but every inverter manufacturer ships kind of undersized cable for their applications, right? But they give you decent cable. I've seen a lot worse in that respect. Also, the efficiency at idle. That is amazing for the van life people and the RV and travel trailer people, or people needing a very efficient inverter that doesn't use a lot of power just idling, like say overnight at a campsite. At 5 watts or 5.5 watts, this is exceptional. That is so good for this price point. I really don't even know how they did it for that price point. Another thing that was a big pro, the efficiency on this. I'm going to pop up some numbers here. So when I did about a half load on this particular inverter, I saw around 92% efficiency. That's really good. And when I had it upwards of, I think it was around 1600 watts, 1500, 1600 watts, I did a quick efficiency calculation. I was at 88%, and those are off my measurement tools. That's really good when I was bench testing this thing. Those are really good efficiency numbers. And again, that idle number of 5 watts, that's just exceptional. I do like that Ampeak does separate out the remote control on this, so they don't force you to buy it, and that helps them keep the cost down. Overall, it's just a solid little unit. And I am putting it to work, as I told you guys and showed you in the video. This is a workhorse right now. It works every single day. It's on every single day in my home. It's powering an air conditioner every single day. If I have any problems with this, you guys are going to be the first to know. I'll put it and I'll pin it in the comment section below. But yeah, overall, very, very good. Do check my video description for links to this inverter. If you're looking for an inverter in this price range, I do feel it's going to be a good option for you. I really, the pros so outweigh the cons on this thing. And if you really, really were picky on it, and I know a lot of you guys are techies that watch my channel, if you're really wanting to nitpick it apart, you can resolder those connections myself, which is probably what I'll do. But again, I didn't find anything terribly wrong. They weren't cold soldered. They weren't going to come off. It's just they could be done a lot better. And visually, when you look at them and you know what you're looking at, you're like, that's not good. So anyways, I hope this helps you make an educated decision on what inverter you might want to buy, or make this a consideration if this is in your budget, if this is the right fit for you. I hope it helps you out make that decision. So guys, I'm all done for the day. I'm going to go take a nap. So I will catch you later. Peace out.